is in New York City. Suman is in Phoenix. Okay, perfect. Okay. Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching to my radio voice. And today I have with me Jeff Tyler, Head of Product Engineering and Data Science, SVP at Insurance Quantified, which I really want to call IQ. I don't know if you guys call yourself IQ, but I really want to call you IQ. And internally, Suman Palit, whose name I might have mispronounced, VP of Product Management at Groundspeed Analytics. And it's actually kind of funny. So I had both Jeff and Suman scheduled for podcast recordings, and then the companies merged. So I got a message from their marketing team letting me know that they've merged, and we brought them into one show. So here we go. Hopefully, first appearance in a podcast since the merger. Okay, so we usually break the ice over the weather. Jeff is in New York City, and Suman is in Phoenix. So we are recording on August 2nd, 2023. What appears to be 2 days past the hottest month in human history, in recorded history. Interestingly, I spent this month in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where it's winter. So for us, it's actually been beautiful. It's been like 50s and 60s and sunny. Today, I actually had to close the door behind me and run the AC in the equivalent of February for the US, because it was 70 some degrees and literally like it was getting too hot. So for me, it's been beautiful. But for Jeff, for you in New York, between the wildfires in Canada and like you've been baking, I'm guessing.
It's been pretty miserable here, actually. The last couple of days have been beautiful here, but
Okay.
before that, it's been a pretty terrible run
Okay.
of heat here in New York, and New York heat comes also with a lot of humidity. So it just hasn't been overall very unpleasant here.
Okay, and Suman, if
It's
you're actually based in Phoenix, like I spent 6 months in Scottsdale, but it was the winter. It was amazing, and then I came back in April for a conference. This was back in 2015 or thereabouts, 14 maybe 13 maybe. I came back in April and it was too hot for me. So personally, the whole like, oh, it's 120 degrees, but it's dry heat. I think that breaks down at about 110.
it does. It
Have you
breaks out
left
about
home
100.
last month?
Yes. So this is the funniest part. So while I am out of Phoenix, for about 3 months in the summer, we escape Phoenix and we come up to the Midwest. So I'm actually very close to Ann Arbor, which is the original headquarters of Groundspeed. I'm about 2 hours from there, and we are looking at the calendar and looking at the weather in Phoenix to decide when we are going to go back. And at this point, it might be closer to Labor Day. So that's
Yeah, I
that's
would
probably
aim
what's going
for
to happen.
like Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas. Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that you've remained safe from the heat. Uh, so we always give the guest the chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Insurance Quantified?
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. We are a company that's actually been around quite a while. We were started as a unit in Two Sigma, which is an asset manager. So we started out of Two Sigma. They've kind of revolutionized a lot of the asset management space, a lot through automation, modeling, data science, and they've ventured into the insurance space. We have worked on several different initiatives over the years, but over the last 2 years, we've been bringing to market a product called Submission IQ, which is really about streamlining the top of funnel activities for underwriting desks, bringing to bear, data science, bringing to bear technology, in service of bringing all the unstructured and structured data together in a digital asset and helping people make decisions faster, helping people rate faster, helping people quote faster. And so, that's kind of brings us to and Suman, you should definitely jump in with what Groundspeed is bringing to the table as part of Insurance Quantified. But Groundspeed is a premium name in the industry at delivering document processing and intelligent document processing in times that are much lower than the rest of the industry has provided. So it's and doing a phenomenal job, and particularly in the space of loss runs, but also across all types of submission documents. Shima?
Yeah, that's probably one of the best descriptions of Groundspeed. We've been very singularly focused on that ingest and enrichment process, right? You know, when you're an insurtech or any kind of like technology company, you have to find one problem, and you have to focus on getting really good at it. So I think the mission at Groundspeed was, look, there is a lot of complexity in documents. We can't change human behavior. Human beings love to write long form documents and emails and send information in them. Our job is going to be able to look at the documents and pull out very high quality data. Turns out it was a harder problem than we had originally set out to solve. So it took lots of steps, and I think Jeff and I are happy to dive into all kinds of details. But then everything came together really well, because where the Groundspeed journey ended, sort of the submission IQ journey took over, which is now you have the data. What are you going to do with it? Because data by itself is not very meaningful. It's the knowledge and the decision making that Jeff just talked about. So I think between like Jeff and myself and pretty much the entire IQ team now, every day is a conversation trying to figure out how to expand those boundaries, right? So
That's super exciting. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so I'm a former middle market underwriter, and I've never been a broker, but significant experience working with brokers as a recruiter, as a marketing rep or sales manager, as an underwriter, etc. And I worked with kind of all over the country in different territories. And I've said this in the podcast a million times. As a middle market underwriter, it was mind blowing how I was making multi-million-dollar decisions for this gigantic, very, very, very good carrier, and like, my girlfriend at the time was working at a gigantic, very, very large broker. I wasn't her underwriter. She wasn't one of my account managers or whatever. But basically, we're working from home, and on one side of the wall, I am receiving 100-page, 120-page PDFs that between my UA and the processing team are spending an incredible amount of time entering into the system. And there's things that are unstructured, like you mentioned, unstructured data. So we have no way to digest them. And on the other side of the wall, my girlfriend is on Epic or Vertafore or whatever, grabbing the data and transferring it via PDF to another poor underwriter, right? So like, there are a lot of waste, number one, and number two, a lot of data doesn't get digested, right? So yes, I can definitely see the importance of this. So since the data flow goes Groundspeed IQ, let's kind of dig into Groundspeed a little bit. So broker has a submission. How can Groundspeed help before it reaches the underwriter?
yeah, so do you have to mind if I take that, and you can add a bunch of color as
Go
well?
for it.
So with Groundspeed, the broker doesn't do anything different. So we are not going to change the broker's behavior. We're not going to ask them to do something any different. We know a lot of carriers who set up these centralized email inboxes. So the broker will continue to do what they're doing, which is they'll send an email to Jeff the broker and say, I'm looking for coverages on this airframe hull and aircraft liability, and here are some exposures and loss runs to look at. So we found the best way to work with a lot of our customers was to be very silent and sort of be the be the listener who gets copied on the email, right? And so you get copied on the email, which means they can continue to do what they're doing manually, because you don't want to disrupt an existing business process and cause a lot of friction. But then we siphon that email, we look at all the documents, and we go, for the customer's use case, what do they need? They need some basic information, they need some loss summarization, and we send the data packet back. And then what happens typically at the carrier end And again, I would love, Tony, to hear about 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 the experiences you've had there too. Is so many underwriters work in Excel. So so we had to be very humble and say, well, okay, we could send the data into this very complex content management system. It'll probably take 5 years, but we could give you an Excel workbook that looks almost identical, like 99% identical to the one you use today. And there'll be some differences because it's coming from our system, and that works. And then people use that as an opportunity to gain confidence in the data. Because that's the other thing, right? You get all these documents, and there is an intermediary. There's Groundspeed or IQ right now, and we are basically, we're basically disambiguating all the mess in the documents and giving you data. Well, how do you trust us? So that's how they engage with us at a level where they can look at the documents and go, oh, okay, Groundspeed did a great job. And it's in Excel, so I don't have to change anything. I can work the way I want to work. And so then the change management that comes after that, we found, it's slow, but it works because we approach it with, a level of respect. And that seems to go a long way.
Makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Everybody knows we need to change. Nobody wants to be the one to change, right?
Right.
And that goes double for brokers in a hard market. So yes, that makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so basically, Groundspeed gets copied on the email, and Insurance Quantified. How does it look like in your world? Once
Right. So the digital, basically the digital form of those documents, right, gets, after it's processed, there is a, as Suman mentioned, there the product for Groundspeed would traditionally drop off an Excel file. What Insurance Quantified has done is built an entire experience around going through that data, building a complete submission, preparing it to rate, right? And really being able to get provenance of all the data points in the submission. So, for example, like when Suman talks about trust, we have things like picture in picture, where you can you click on a field and you can see where in the document it came from. So if you're someone who's used to reading the 125-page PDF, you can feel confident. Okay, this came from a field I know, right? It's not just if we find multiple
I,
sources, yeah, Tony, go ahead.
back in my day, and literally it was like 8 years ago, right? It wasn't that long ago. Back in my day, when I wanted to know where something came from, there was step one, which was Control F on the PDF, and step two, which was Becky. What? Okay, good. Continue.
Very true.
No, that's good, because that's exactly. I mean, Tony, I appreciate you recognize you're like our target market, right? Like, so, like, in fact, it is like essentially middle market. Basically the entire market could benefit, but middle market is actually in this space fully, right? Like, there's enough complexity where you have to go through all these documents. There are large enough risks where you have to do a lot of analysis, right? But there are also, you don't have the system necessarily in place to help you do that. So there's, you're kind of stuck in the middle of that. No,
Yeah,
the word is appropriate. So
there's significant volume, right, Jeff?
yeah, exactly. It's the spigot is on. You're getting submission flow, and you have to basically figure out what to work on, what's ready to be worked on. What do I need to go back to the broker for? I don't want to go back to the broker 100 times, right? Because that there's friction in that process. So how do I figure all this out? And that's where IQ has really built an experience and an application around that behavior, right? So like, how can I look at all the submissions I have? How can I know which ones are ready to work on? How can I know which ones are in my appetite, right? So I can work on the right things. I can prioritize the business that I have a better chance of winning, that's ready to look at. Because if you require 5 years of losses before you're willing to send out a quote, like, and you don't have that, like, working that risk doesn't make a lot of sense. And so what ends up happening is that you'll go in, you'll find out you don't have the stuff, you'll send it to the broker, and then they send you something, and you find out that they ran those reports. Those are old. The value date on the loss runs is actually last year, and then you have to go back again. And so like we check all of these things to make sure that the submission is not just complete, but like relevant as far as like, the value date is correct. The range of dates is what your expectation is. And we actually give you kind of visual cues for where that is, what to do, how to get it if you don't have it. And then on top of that, we provide some initial analysis of that data, breakdowns of that data. And so, to be honest, this is where the two companies, there's kind of this perfect marriage of, the great job of extraction. So IQ has an extraction methodology, but it's after how to get a handful of, or not a handful, but like a smaller amount of data very quickly so that you can make decisions. Groundspeed's process has been about getting basically the entire data set. So you can see that these two things marry very nicely into a process where you can do clearance really fast, right? You can clear accounts, but then get all of the data you need to be able to quote the business very fast as well. And so this is where this all comes together, and this is where IQ really fits into the story.
Okay.
Yeah, and the
So
other.
IQ, if I'm understanding, go ahead.
Oh no, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You had a question. I was going to add
No, no,
something
no.
on top of Jeff, which is
Yeah, go ahead.
that so one of the frustrations that we've heard from our customers a lot is because of the volume. So Jeff touched on the complexity of the documents that you get, the depth of analysis you have to do, but then there's volume. So what then happens is with limited resources, these underwriting teams are often making decisions in a vacuum on what to work on. So so they'll be 30, 40, 50, 60% of their incoming submissions won't get looked at. Some of them, they may guess right that it's just the broker blocking the market, and so they don't have to look at it. But there's a lot that's in their appetite that they're not seeing. So one of the things that I think within the IQ platform, they'll be able to see a lot better with that completeness of the data is there anything they're missing? Is there anything in, like currently within their appetite that if they had taken a high level look, they may have decided to reject. But if they took a deeper look at the exposures and exactly the details behind the losses, they would be, oh, okay, this is definitely within like our appetite to insure with these premiums and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of impatience that we see in the market that in every month they just lose out on business because they just don't know what's coming to them. So I think one of the areas that we're hoping to really eliminate and shine a light on is all the stuff that is flowing through the pipeline without anybody looking at it today.
Yeah, we've heard anecdotally that there are people we've talked to in the market that had dropped 20 to 30% of their submissions on the floor every month. Like they just can't get to them. And they don't even know necessarily if those are the best submissions or the worst submissions or whether they were right in their wheelhouse. And honestly, they don't, because they drop them, they don't even capture the data to go back and review and say like, should we be changing the way we prioritize? They don't even know a lot of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, in my day, my territory was Mississippi, middle market. There's not a lot of middle market business in Mississippi. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and I very rarely did we get a submission that we hadn't seen in the past. So it was just kind of updating it. So I didn't have to choose which ones to work, but if I had to choose, first rule of thumb would have been which broker, right? This is one of my best brokers, right? But that, number one, that doesn't lead to creating great relationships with new brokers or with right, as the world of Mississippi brokers changes, that like I might be looking at the wrong brokers, and also there will be times where the wrong broker sends the right business in, and I might never know. And like you said, the biggest piece is no data is being captured, so we can't make better decisions.
This is
what to look at.
This is actually, I mean, this is exactly where I think the value of capturing the data comes out. Is that in Submission IQ we do have a distribution analytics page, so like you can actually look at the volume you've gotten by broker, how they performed for you in the past, right? Over the past 12 months, say, you can look at this individual submissions. And actually, one of the things we do is we provide the ability to kind of like, because again, we're here in insurance, right? You have like a printable tear sheet on a broker level where you can, when you're going to have the conversation with a broker or, about the business they're sending, you can actually have all of that breakdown right in front of you. You can go out and have it. One of the other anecdotes we hear a lot, right, is, you go to the broker and you're like, you're sending us terrible business. And they're like, no, we're not. And you're like, yeah, okay, I guess you're not. Right, like because without the data, it's hard to have the argument, right? So we're trying to arm underwriting teams with the data about their distribution to be able to go have those meaningful conversations about growing business with people, or where the business used to be good and now it's not as good, and like what's going on, and like be able to have a data-driven conversation with their distribution.
So, talk to me about. So I'm sold on the idea. Talk to me about the implementation, because as every listener know, underwriting systems today go from guidewire to stone and chisel, right? And maybe some insurtechs that have like truly top of the line new systems that are either home built or whatever. But how do we plug it into our AS400?
Yeah, no, it's a super question. So like, at the end of the day, as part of even just the sales process that we do, we're actually evaluating this type of stuff. And what we do right away off the bat is we'll ask an underwriting team for 200 submissions, and we'll evaluate how their business looks, what they're getting from their brokers, all of that right away. And actually, what we do is we process it into a tenant of our environment, so we can show you back your data in the product. And then we can start to actually have a little bit of fun, right? Like which of these things should go to which underwriter? Which of these things would you decline right away? And actually, we have a rules engine that underpins the whole thing. That we can start building out some basic rules and demonstrate how it works. So like, in a sense, part of our sales process is a very light implementation, right? Because we want people to see the tool with their data. We find it's much more interesting to people when it's their data and not a demo in the tool. So as far as implementing it, getting the data in is all, like Suman said, there's email, we have methodologies for getting data into the ingestion system. We have the application, and then there's methods to get the data back out, right? Suman mentioned the Excel workbooks. It's kind of funny that both companies actually worked on this problem, right? Like we all kind of came to the same conclusion that like we're not getting away from Excel. We all were maybe in denial a little while, like maybe we could change this, and then like you're like, nah, I'm not going to change this. So you can get it on Excel. We have APIs to get the data out. There's actually functionality in the platform to download the data out of a submission. So there's a bunch of ways to get the data back out, and whether it's into your AS400 or into your Guidewire paths, or or into in fact, we're in the MGA market a lot. We're in the agency management systems as well. Basically, we have an API where we're able to integrate with these downstream systems. We don't actually have any sort of designs to do all of it, right? We're not trying to be a policy administration system. In fact, Insurance Quantified built one at one point in our history, and it's not something we're selling, right? So like, we are happy to do integrations with Socotra, Guidewire, or Duck Creek, IMS, NetRate for rating, right? Any of these platforms, we're building up kind of a repertoire of being able to do this on behalf of our customers, and getting the data out and into those systems is important to us as it is to our customers, right? Because the rest of the workflow has to take over, and we're trying to facilitate speed. We're trying to facilitate ease, right? And so it has to happen that way. Okay. Does that answer your question, Tony?
Absolutely, fantastic answer. What about the pricing? How is it structured? How does it work? Is it something that only makes sense for the Liberty Mutuals of the world, or does it make sense for a county mutual, or like how big do I have to be for it to make sense? And what does the pricing look like?
So we actually work with customers on pricing and on a case by case basis. We have kind of rules of thumb around premium levels, and we're a SaaS company, right? So there's going to be some sort of base SaaS, and then volume rates, as it were. And volume is essentially premium, but it could be documents. And the two companies coming together have slightly different models, so we're going to have to bring that together. But really what it comes down to is we want to be in it with our customers. We want our customers to have a rate to get in that makes it palatable to do it, right? We work with single line of business MGAs all the way up to tier one carriers, right? So we're across the space. IQ or Insurance Quantified has been in. See, even I slipped into it, Tony. We've been very heavy and focused in the MGA space because the desktop is still very open, actually, in the MGA space. A lot of the time, people are looking for the whole tool and so on. Groundspeed has had a lot of success in the tier one carrier space, and so we have customers across the spectrum now. So there's no one price point. There's no target where it only makes sense as a tier one carrier. We work with the market. We want to work with people who want to work with us. So we're going to work pricing to make it palatable for those different ends of the market. We're not going to try to make it eat into an MGA's EBITDA in a way that there's just no way that they could say yes. I mean, there's just there's kind of different economics at different ends of the market, and we're working within it.
Any great customer success stories? And from my perspective, you can mention company names. You don't have to. Up to you guys if you're allowed but basically any great customer success stories.
So I'll take one, and Suman, I'm sure that you have plenty to choose from. But if you don't mind, I'll just throw out there. So we worked with a commercial trucking MGA. I can mention the name, ITMA. They're part of MSIG North America. They're under that umbrella. And we've worked with them to push their business through Submission IQ. In the first 2 months after implementation, now mind you, Tony, you asked about implementation. The implementation was, I think, a 3-month period total, including getting hands on keyboards, getting everyone on. We're working to shorten that, but in insurance world, I know that that's pretty quick. And we reduced their time to quote by 85%. Basically, by just taking things out of spreadsheets and email inboxes and pulling all the data out, and organizing it, and making it easier, actually, for the head underwriter to get help from others and do things that they were the ones doing primarily, and now they can actually get more of the team to help with. So we've streamlined their flow, and it's been an incredibly successful client journey for us with them.
Fantastic. We might have lost Suman.
No, I think I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. We might not have video. We'll see. Supposedly on Riverside, video will record either way. Okay, so Suman, there you are. Any great customer success stories from your side of the game?
Yes, actually we do. So so one of our very long very long-standing customers started very small with us, sending us lost runs for certain lines of businesses. At the last company-wide meeting, they mentioned that they've had an active relationship with Groundspeed, and for certain lines of businesses, they have cut down the time to quote from days to just hours, right? And that's just with the ingest. So that's just with Groundspeed providing a full set of loss runs, a full set of submission documents, exposures, and all of that going seamlessly to a system where they basically cut out days worth of an underwriting assistant, basically entering in everything at the same time, right? One of their closest competitors, who I probably cannot name, but I think they have a stag as their logo. We're kind of across the street. We've been a long time partner with them as well, and they've done a significant integration of a large segment of the middle market. So, so they've had so they have a fairly sophisticated homegrown like underwriting, rating, policy admin system all kind of rolled into one. And it's one of the few fully integrated systems that we've actually built for them. And they've been up and running for like the last several years now. And we've, and I think the bigger part of the success story with these customers isn't really that they're consuming a product, it's that we become an integral part of their business. We become a part of their business processes. So, you know, there'll be weekly check-ins with a number of integration teams and IT teams, and Groundspeed's one of them, right? And so they've built up a level of trust, and I think, in my mind, that is the biggest success, right? It's not how much can you sell to the customers. It's how much do they trust you, and then you realize that they're running their entire business on the back of your technology, right? So you have to take it very seriously. You have to get it right. So I think it's been phenomenal.
Fantastic. Thank you both. We're kind of getting to the home stretch here. Um, what conferences in the fall can we come talk to you guys at, if you already know?
I mean, we're going to be at WIZIA. We're going to be at Target Markets. We're going to be at ITC. Um, those are the ones I know of off the top of my head. And yeah, I mean, you come see us. I mean, we try to go a lot towards these industry conferences. Like, again, Target Markets is a good example where, we're very, like I said, we're deeply embedded in the MGA community, in the program administration space. Like, they're all there. And so, so are we. Right.
Okay. Perfect, perfect. Target markets. I have never been, but I've heard awesome things. And lately, I've been doing a lot of MGA business on the recruiting side. So I am really curious to go to target markets. And I know that it's always in Arizona. So it looks like this year it's October 16 to 18 in Arizona. By then, it might be double digits. We can't guarantee it'll be less than 90, but by then it probably won't be over 100, hopefully. Fantastic. Thank you both so much for your time today. Very, very interesting stuff. One thing that I don't know if the listeners know, but I my approach to the podcast is as little prep as possible. I invite every insurtech to come, and I spend a lot of time hunting for insurtechs to invite them to come. But once it gets scheduled, I don't research the company up front because I really want to be my reactions to be sincere, right? This particular one, I love what both sides of the company are doing. Makes perfect sense to me. Sometimes I'm a little lost on exactly what you're doing. This time it makes perfect sense. And number two, this is the best example I can think of in our industry of 1 + 1 = 3. It really makes a ton of sense. I'm generally kind of anti M&A because I'm a Bernie bro, and often it results in lost jobs, and often in the long term it's not even beneficial to the shareholders. Like too often M&A is done to grow a CEO's domain. And in the long term, it wasn't particularly good, right? Now, if Berkshire buys you, that's probably a really good marriage. But right in the rest of M&A, there's a lot of bad M&A out there. But this one really makes sense to me. It really, right? If I put myself in the shoes of the client, I love being able to buy you guys together, and I love having your two things fully integrated with each other, not just API together. So yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. Congratulations to the M&A team in both companies that figured this one out. When this goes live, I will tag both of you on LinkedIn, and I will tag the company on LinkedIn. I'm guessing I have to tag both companies. At this point, they're not quite fully integrated, I guess, but Katie will guide me on that. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. This
Thank
was great,
you
Tony.
so
Thank
much,
you so
Tony.
much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Katie, for organizing everything for us. Appreciate it.
Perfect.